Hello everyone, and thank you for coming. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending where you are. This is your speaker, Samir Al-Madhoun. Welcome to Introduction to Negotiation Management. Happy to see the people bulking in at the webinar. Definitely it's going to be a busy webinar with people attending, so thank you for coming. So waste no time. Definitely this webinar is sponsored by CIPS, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. And right before we start, the reason why I picked this topic is because I felt there's a need to introduce some topics from the vital topics from the skills needed for supply chain professionals. So somehow skipping rules before we start. You are all muted. If you have ever been to any of our webinars, you know this very well. Leave your questions at the chat box as usual, and we always dedicate the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes for questions. Any technical issues, please log off and come back again. This happens if you lose me because of the internet pressure these days. Just log off and come back again. Sometimes we face technical issues, so please pardon us for this as well. Okay. Okay, so we have 230, almost 230 attendees at this webinar. Welcome everyone. My name is Samir Al-Madhoun. I am the managing partner of Muhakat, and in my free time, I enjoy doing these free webinars. Back in the day, we used to do this live, face-to-face in Amman, Jordan, but now I'm enjoying it, delivering it online actually. So I'm a CIPS Direct Associate, which means I deliver all CIPS education line. I'm going to talk about this shortly. This very topic is taken from a product, an educational product called CIPS Diploma in Procurement and Supply. CIPS Diploma in Procurement and Supply, precisely from one of the books that's called Commercial Negotiation. Having a closer look to this, as you see, I'm talking about the Diploma in Procurement and Supply, one of the entry-level education in procurement science that's offered by the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. Yeah, I need to share my screen. Sorry, I missed that, everyone. So let me go back. This is definitely one of the most interesting topics that I want to talk about. Basically, as I said in an earlier slide, this presentation is part of the CIPS Diploma in Procurement and Supply, basically the commercial negotiation book. And basically, it is inspired by this level of education, which everyone can attend basically to flourish their knowledge in procurement science. As you see, the topics are very diverse, and my topic today is basically taking from the 5th book of the Diploma in Procurement and Supply, which is Commercial Negotiation. If you have attended the previous webinars, we talked about the skills needed for supply chain professionals, one of which is negotiation skills. Okay, so this is what really inspired this topic today. So I'm trying my best to in 1 hour, I'm trying my best to deliver a packed knowledge in negotiation management. Okay, so the skills that we need to raise as supply chain professionals here, as procurement professionals, is your ability to plan for commercial negotiation. So we will start with, as always, I love doing polls. So we'll start with a poll that asks you how far you believe that you have the skills and knowledge needed to negotiate and plan for negotiation. I'm going to launch this. Yes, no, as usual. Yes, no, as usual. I believe I have the skills and knowledge needed to plan for negotiation. That's pretty impressive so far. as I enjoy my coffee. I have the skills and knowledge needed to plan for negotiation. Okay, keep it going, guys. So far, we have 80% of you answering the polls. 85%, great. Guys, the poll is coming for everyone, okay? If you have technical issues, please log off and come back again. Some is asking, how could I answer the question? You see a poll in front of you, just like everyone, and you click on yes or no. Great, so we have 90% of you answering so far. I see the answers coming our way, and I'm loving the answers because this is what we want from everyone that works in the field of supply chain management. By the way, we are born as negotiators. The best negotiators ever are kids, you know? If you have a kid, if you have a daughter or son, you know very well that they negotiate very well to get what they want. They either cry, they put some pressure on you, and so on, right? Okay, so I think the skills of negotiation is something we raise by time in ourselves, but I would love to see how far do you guys go as professional negotiators in the sense of planning for negotiation and so on. I'm starting to receive questions, Samer, Abdurrahman, everyone. I'm going to come back to you towards the end of your towards the end of the webinar. So please bear with me towards the end. Okay. Okay. So I have like 97% of you putting the poll. So let's publish. I'm going to close and share the results with everyone. So now we share the results. As you see, 44% believe they do not have what it takes to manage negotiation and to raise negotiation skills in themselves. Great. Almost 65% of the attendees believe they have the skills needed to manage negotiation and to plan for negotiation and so on. So we are going to spend the next 50 minutes or so talking about what is really what kind of skills is needed and how does the managing process of negotiation look like and so on. Okay, so I'm going to hide that and come back to the original slides. Great. So yeah, it looks promising so far. So how do we define negotiation? I know if you just Google negotiation, you find tens and tens of different definitions for negotiation. So I have collected some of you based from different literature out there in the world that talks about negotiation as a definition. And I have my favorite that I will share with you. Okay, so as you see on the screen, Oxford defines, the Oxford Living Dictionary defines negotiation as a discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. Good, fair enough. Who else is defining that? Merriam-Webster, the confer with another so as to arrive at a settlement of some matter. Okay. Others would define negotiation as a process to which two or more people with different views reach agreement by the use of different methods of persuasion. I love this, the fact that we have methods of persuasion. I'm going guys, keep the questions coming. As I say, I'm going to come back to them. Yes, they are available on recording. So my favorite definition of negotiation is based on two phrases. Negotiation is a process where we have purposeful persuasion and constructive compromise. Purposeful persuasion means I'm gonna do persuasion. I will try to persuade the other party, convince the other party for a purpose that I have. I want to reduce the price. I want to defer a payment and so on. So this is called purposeful persuasion. But in order to get this, in order to get something, most of the times we need to create a constructive compromise, which means I will also compromise something, but I need to do that compromise with in a constructive manner. I want to think, what do I want to compromise to the other party so I can take something in the return, okay? Yeah, so there are many definitions for negotiation. Negotiation is a process which we search for term to obtain what we want from someone who wants something from us, as you see. So it's two-way direction that can have two or more actually of parties sitting together. And us as supply chain professionals, as procurement professionals, we are faced in many situations where we need to negotiate with the other parties, okay? So the essence of why do we negotiate most of the times is raised by a conflict that we have. We are not agreeing on the price. We are not agreeing on the certain terms and so on. So here's some examples of what we may wish to negotiate on, but definitely these are not the only terms that you want to negotiate. You may wish to negotiate a price. As a buyer, for example, you would like to pay as little as possible for the goods and services. As a buyer, you may wish to negotiate quality issues in the final products, in the deliveries and so on. You want to have the highest possible price for services and so on. Or maybe what would drive your negotiation is the payment terms, where you want to enhance the payment terms in your favor, like deferring a payment term, for example, or create low payments or delayed payment and so on. Maybe you wish the other party to share some risk with you. Insurance or whatever kind of investment you want the supplier to invest with you and so on. Volumes and commitments that would come from the supplier. Most often, a lot of suppliers, they do prioritize customers. So you want to make sure you have the right amount of products that you have and so on. So you want to negotiate something like maximum flexibility in the delivery, maybe, or minimum commitment to volumes, okay? So you try as much as you can to get the best price with the minimum commitment of volumes that you want to take from the other party. And there are enormous reasons why you want to negotiate in a procurement process. Contract terms, I'm always asked, what is it that we negotiate? Definitely everything in a contract is negotiable. Everything in a contract is negotiable, okay? Disputes resolution, how are we going to solve our problems in court, arbitrations, and so on. These kinds of disputes are all areas to negotiate in a contract. So basically, as procurement professional, we are faced with these issues where we want to understand what is the problem and how are we going to resolve it through negotiation with suppliers. And by the way, it's not only the supplier that we negotiate with customers, we negotiate internally with our employees, stakeholders, finance department, and so on. So negotiation can happen externally or internally between the partners or within the cross-functional silos of a supply chain, actually. The greatest question is faced today, are negotiators born or made? Are negotiators born or made? You think that some people are naturally born negotiators? This is one of the fundamental mistakes in negotiation management, okay? I understand, I'm sure now you are thinking of someone in your organization that has great skills to negotiate. Great skills to negotiate. Yeah, some people has charisma. Some people has سرعة بديهة. They can answer immediately. They always convince the other party. There are a lot of people in the society that has good charisma that allows them to negotiate better. I know this for a fact, but actually the good negotiators are the ones that educate themselves about negotiation management. Okay, so this is too long to to read, but my preferred part is basically here. The winning negotiators, the dominant diplomats, are trained, and they train themselves to succeed. They see negotiation as a process. So the negotiation here is a process that they need to do some analysis for, they need to practice for, they need to rehearsal for, they need to prepare for ahead of time, and so on. Wow, it takes a lot to negotiate, guys. You know, so so yeah, it's not about the charisma that you have. It's about how much you prepare, how much you educate yourself about negotiation techniques, skills, management process, and so on. You find these good negotiators. How do we describe them? They note what tactics and approaches work for them very well in certain circumstances. They understand the rules and can rapidly tell whether the other party knows or not the process, and so on. In a nutshell, the purpose what I have this slide in is to tell you that negotiators are not only born, they are also made, okay? So what you want to do is to raise the skills of a negotiator in you. And it's not about only the charisma that you need to have, it's about a whole management process. So if you want to define what is really negotiation management, whenever we entail the word management in anything, it means planning and execution. So management requires your planning and execution to certain scenarios, okay? And there is a lot to prepare for a negotiation. There is a lot to prepare for a negotiation. And I still remember the first time I did negotiate, I was working in the procurement department. I did the most lousy negotiation ever, okay? I did fatal mistakes because I didn't know how to manage negotiation, how to prepare for negotiation, how to think of a negotiation, okay? It's not only about asking the supplier for a discount or asking the supplier, is this the last price you have? Okay, this is one of the worst negotiation techniques, by the way, asking the other party if this is the last answer or this is the last price, because naturally the supplier wouldn't say, no, actually I'm having 5% discount for you hidden for last. You say, yeah, this is my last price. Okay, so I never believe this is the right negotiation technique that you want to deploy to the other party. However, so the greatest learning here is that negotiators are made, not necessarily born. Great that you would have to, but I would stress out that you would be learning how to make proper negotiation rather than being born with skills of negotiation, okay? Having both is something really great to aim for. Okay, so these skilled negotiators, what attributes do they have? What kind of skills do they have? Okay, so we will run another poll now. And in that poll, I'm gonna ask you, you will see different skills, 5, 6 skills, and that's a learning, seeing those skills, skills that has to be in a negotiator, something that you need to raise in yourself, okay? Within these skills, please select 3 that you think is most important among all these skills. Okay, so let's do the poll. You will see more than 5 or 6 negotiation skills. Please select 3 that you think most important to you. The importance is not really what matters, but select 3 of them, please. Okay. So the poll says select the top 3 skills needed for negotiators in today's environment. So we have problem analysis, we have preparation before a meeting, we have active listening skills, we have clear and effective communication, we have collaboration and teamwork. Which one of these? Select 3, please. Okay. Select 3 that you think they are the most important skills. All of them are good to have in you as a negotiator. But which one of these are the most critical according to your knowledge, experience, seeing other negotiators, talking to suppliers, and so on, okay? Yes, and I don't know why you can't select. Everyone is selecting. maybe it's taking a time to distribute to everyone, and there will be a time where you can answer because we have like hundreds of attendees today. Okay, but I see already we have 70% of you voted already. Okay, we have 75% voting. %80 of you voting, good. Very interesting. So you are selecting 3 of the top 5 skills needed for a negotiator. 85 of you are voting, great. Take your time. So is it the top 3 that you think is our problem analysis to identify interest, preparation before a meeting of negotiation, active listening skills, clear and effective communication, collaboration and teamwork? Okay, so we have 90% of you voted already. So I'm gonna distribute the results for everyone. It's totally okay if you haven't answered, guys. We're just trying our best to think together and learn together. I'm gonna call the poll off and share the results with you for the sake of time. Very interesting. Out of the sample that answers, 97 of you believes that clear and effective communication is the top skill that would be needed for a skilled negotiator as an attribute. 70% believe active listening skills are very important. 69% believe preparation before a meeting is definitely a great skill that you need to have. How much is a great attribute. And 76% believes that problem analysis to identify interests and goals and so on is very important. And odd enough, 18% believes that collaboration and teamwork is needed in the as a good attribute for negotiations. All of them are important, but this is, as you see, this is a personal view of everyone out here. That's pretty interesting. I will make sure to share this with the social media later on, actually. Okay, so let's go back to our slide behind this and coming back to the slides. Now, okay, that's interesting. As I said, negotiators are born and not made, made but not born, and that's why you have to have certain skills in you raised as a negotiator. And by the way, this is not an easy, there's no easy short path to do this. It takes a lot of time and efforts to become a practice as well, and proper management to become a good negotiator. Okay, because most of you, I knew that most of you would look at effective listening and proper communication skills as very important factor and attribute. This is also quoted from a Greek philosopher. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. One of the worst pitfalls and one of the biggest don't do in a negotiation is that you speak more than you listen, or you listen passively. You need to train yourself as a negotiator to listen effectively. And this is an important part of being a good communicator. And it's part of the communication skills that you need to enjoy as a negotiator. Okay, let me share my thoughts on this personally. When I was young, much young, probably like 10 years ago or something, one of my managers, whenever he asks for something or he tries to to improve a process that I am managing, and he starts doing some suggestions for that process, I would cut him immediately and I tell him, no, this is not gonna work because of this and that. You know what he said at the evaluation, the annual evaluation? He said, Samuel, you are a great guy. Technically, you are top-notch supply chain professional, but I only wish that you listen to me once I speak. Okay? I think you need to attend effective communication skills. I wish you could learn to listen to the other party so you can judge a view that's different than your views. Okay? You might be correct, and I might also be correct, and you need to listen to me in order to create a win-win situation between parties. Okay? And that day, I learned it the hard way. Negotiators have to have great communication skills. You have 2 ears to create effective listening. Some people listen passively. Which means they don't translate what they hear. Sometimes suppliers, they give us hints. Sometimes they give us emotions that we need to translate in a negotiation. Okay, the greatest persuasion technique that you can understand in negotiation and reflect in a negotiation is emotions. Okay. However, so yeah, that's very interesting as a soft skill that we need to learn and raise inside of us. These are just a small recommendation of the do's and don'ts. How does skilled negotiators behave? Skilled negotiators always prepare themselves ahead of time for negotiation. They always prepare themselves. Okay, skilled negotiators, what do they do as well? They develop trust with other parties, so they can always create a win. Okay, create comfort in the negotiation process. Skilled negotiators always have warm approach towards negotiating with other parties. Skilled negotiators give knowledge and seek information. You always want to know why the other party is interested in that payment term, for example. They have emotion, as I said, as the first persuasion technique. And this is done by a study that looked into hundreds of negotiators to see which one of the, what really works for them as negotiators. I found that emotions are the greatest persuasion technique against the other parties. Good negotiators, they have clarity. You know, they are clear about what they say and what they want. Good negotiators, they test their understanding for opposition of the supplier. So they ask the supplier back, so my understanding is that you want to do this because of that. They test and summarize their understanding. Good negotiators, they try to understand the other party behaviors. Good negotiators, they don't leave the negotiation with a failure, like we haven't reached anything. Okay, it's a lose-lose scenario. Okay, good negotiators, they give focus and get attention from the other parties. And these things that you want to work in yourself by time, by knowledge, by reading, by practicing negotiations, and so on. Okay, good negotiators, they use their expertise to impress and win arguments with other parties, and this is one of the major influencing skills, actually. Okay, what does good negotiators or skilled negotiators don't do? Okay, they don't develop arguments. Most of us, when we go in a negotiation or a discussion with a colleague, all we want to do is just to prove ourselves correct and create an argument, and the argument goes into an argument, and negotiation does not require you to do that. Negotiation is about creating, most of the times, not always, a win-win scenario between you and the other party. Okay, so skilled negotiators, they don't develop arguments that doesn't go anywhere. Okay, they don't counter propose always. Okay, they don't like to be seen as negative people that does not have a good point of view. Good negotiators as well, they don't get into a defend attack position. It's not really required to create a win-win situation between you and the other party, and so on. Okay, so we should learn from this that there are things, skills approaches, attributes that we always need to have in ourselves, and there are things to avoid when we are trying to become skilled negotiators. Okay. Now, moving forward, it's all about the conflict that happens between you and the other party, regardless who's the other party, suppliers, customers, financial manager, whatever. Okay. And this is one of the most important matrices that you would learn in a negotiation management. You need to understand what is really your position in a negotiation. Okay. So if you look at the two matrices here, assertiveness, and assertiveness means how much you want to be assertive about something, yani demanding for something, and you don't want to give any compromises. Assertive. And the other part, other dimension is the cooperativeness, how much you want to cooperate with the other party. So here we have low, 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 and definitely how do we describe this position? High, high. Okay. This is how we manage our conflicts. And vice versa. Okay. So sometimes if you are let's say a very assertive person, يعني you always demand something, there's no way back from this, and I want this to happen. Okay. If you are an assertive person and not cooperative at all with the other party in the negotiation, that would make you a competing character or a competing position of negotiation. You want, all you care about is competing the other party. Okay. Here, totally the opposite. You would be very cooperative with the other party. You try to understand the problem that the other party is having. You try to give compromises to the other party. Okay, you're not assertive at all. You are unassertive, and you don't demand and you don't stick to your demand and so on. And you are very cooperative, understanding the needs of the other party in negotiation. That would make the style of the conflict that you are managing is an accommodating style. You try to accommodate the other party. If you are not, this is the worst kind of negotiators. I don't want you to be here at all. This is where you are not cooperative at all. You are not assertive at all. That would be an avoiding style. This is where you never reach an agreement with the other party. Okay. You might also wish to be a collaborating character. Okay, which means you are in a high assertiveness. You know what you want. You demand everything that you want, and at the same time, you try to understand the other party position, okay? And then you become collaborating character, high, high, okay? So how do I describe this? It's, by the way, it's called the Thomas Kilmann conflict instrument styles, okay? There are different ways we do perceive this matrix. It's either that you try to, through this, you try to understand which one are you. Can you think of yourself now? Which one am I out of these? Okay. When we do a negotiation class, we give you a whole questionnaire where you answer questions like 25, 30 questions, and then we try to understand which kind of negotiator are you. Okay. How do you negotiate according to the questionnaire that you do? So some would say, I am accommodating character. Some would say, by the way, and this is something you do in your normal life, by the way, are you an assertive character? Are you accommodating? Are you avoiding? For me personally, without even doing the questionnaire exercise, I know for a fact that I am an accommodating character. Okay, how is that important or not? First, it's good to know yourself, but what is really needed for a negotiation is that you need to wear hats according to the situation. One of the greatest attributes of a good negotiator is wearing hats. And with that, I mean, sometimes you have to be a competing character in negotiation. Sometimes you have to be a collaborating character, depending on the situation, how much you need the supplier. Is he a dominant supplier? Are you the only customer in the market? Do you have the upper hand? Do you want to create long-term relationship? Is it just a small buying from the market? Situationally, this is something you judge situationally. And then you say, for this negotiation, I want to prepare myself to be an accommodating character or to play accommodation in the negotiation. So this is what we mean by preparing for negotiation. The first lesson in preparing for negotiation is to understand your position and which style you want to use. And this is very challenging because if you are an accommodating character as a person, I would say, it's very hard for you to become competing. or to play competing. And this is something you want to practice by time and by learning and so on. Okay. Yeah, Hisham, I call it always wearing the hats. Okay. Good. Definitely, guys, this book, the commercial negotiation book, the one that this one, the one I pointed earlier, is 15 hours education as part of the diploma. So imagine all these topics are being discussed heavily in the SIPS diploma for procurement and supply. However, we're trying to do something in 1 hour to crash as much as we can from these principles of negotiation. Then eventually your style of negotiation either would be, or most of the times you want to create either win-win approach or win-lose approach. And in win-win approach, you try your best to create an area of common understanding between you and the supplier. And win-win approach does not necessarily mean that we shop the cake 50-50 for you and me. It means that everyone leaves happy with the outcomes of the negotiation. Okay, so in this case, you either practice integrative negotiation, and integrative stands for integration with the other party, or you establish a distributive approach of negotiation. And in the integrative approach, you try your best to create the win-win situation that we talked about. In this case, you are a kind of character, and the situation requires everyone leaves happy, and this definitely preserves long-term agreements. However, it's not always what is really required to create one. Sometimes it depends on the situation of negotiation that you have. And somewhere you want to create a distributive approach of negotiation, and distributive means I'm going to distribute to you 25% of the cake. I will take 75 for myself. You will distribute the gains of the negotiation to the other party and take the most of your interest in that. Okay, so distributive negotiation as an approach for negotiation is where you the interested parties are attempting to divide something and distribute something of value between the parties, and this is also called zero-sum approach, or what we called also a win-lose approach, while here you create a win-win situation for both parties. Okay, so these are the this is something to prepare in negotiation, like what am I going to do? Am I going to play integrative approach or distributive approach? And definitely you can correlate this to the matrix, the Thomas Kilmann matrix that talks about which kind of position do I want to take in the negotiation, accommodating or avoiding or competing or compromising, and so on. Okay, all of these is what we call it today negotiation management. So in negotiation management, you need to understand what is your position and how are you going to negotiate. In negotiation management, you need to understand, am I going to play integrative or distributive kind of negotiation? These are major differences between them, and we'll take samples definitely. So when you have distributive negotiation, where you attempt to create win-lose approach, okay, you get as much of the pie as you can from the other party. Okay, while if you see this from a win-win approach, you expand the pie so everyone would leave happy and everyone would leave more convinced with the negotiation. Okay, and the distributive negotiation, you think of your position basically. You want to have the upper hand. You want to keep your interests confidential. You don't want to show the other party that you need them. While in integrative approaches, all you care about is to understand the interests and express your interest and understand the interests of the other party, so you can reach somewhere in the middle between you guys. Okay, definitely what is preferred today in a long-term relationship with the supplier or customer is to play integrative approach of negotiation. Okay, now when it comes to information sharing in the negotiation, here if you are playing distributive or you're acting in a distributive manner, you don't to share a lot of information. You need to know a lot from the other party. While here, the other party, you and the other party work together in an open book information sharing to understand the problem and how are we going to resolve it, and so on. So it seems to me like this one is perfectly creating a win-lose approach, while this one is creating a win-win approach. And also, you can think always of doing a lose-win approach, where you try to give much and take less, but that would be for a reason that you would win in the future, for example. Okay, so this is the main differences between thinking win-lose and win-win, and this is something to determine in the negotiation. What is my position today? How do I want to leave this negotiation? Okay, negotiation requires a strategy, and with that we mean having objectives and boundaries that's clear for me, because skilled negotiators are made and not born. Okay, so what I want you to do is to always think of the objectives that you want to achieve and the boundaries of the negotiation, and what is it that you might potentially win out, what is it that I'm looking for in a negotiation. Okay, most negotiations are won or lost based on the preparation stage. So one of the initial stages in negotiation is preparation, and we call this pre-negotiation stage. Negotiation is pre-negotiation stage, during negotiation, and post-negotiation. In the pre-negotiation stage, you need to prepare a lot, and you need to have your objectives clear, and you need to have your boundaries clear, your position, as we talk about, and so on. One of the most interesting learnings that I have in negotiation is that you never go into a negotiation without determining the MIL. What is it that I need or must achieve in this negotiation? What is it that I intend to achieve? What is it that's nice to have? You know, some issues like discount on the price is nice to have, but it's not the most essential thing. The most essential thing, the must, is the speed of delivery. Okay, so before you go in a negotiation, you need to determine your must achieve, your intent to achieve, and you like to achieve. Okay, never ever leave the negotiation without achieving or making sure you achieve the must achieve factors that you have. And this is something you need to understand depending on the situation, depending on your stakeholders. Probably the finance is going into bad times, financial times, so the financials will say we can never pay in advance. Okay, we can never pay in advance. We can only pay after 90 days. So for you and for the finance department, this is a must achieve. Okay, say you are a humanitarian institute or organization, and for you the fund is not an issue. If you have any humanitarian fellows here attending, probably the fund is not an issue for a certain degree. So for you, getting a 5% discount is that's the most critical thing to you. It's like to achieve. Why not saving some money? But for me, I need to create a resilient supply chain, so speed of delivery is what I need to achieve here. Okay, so never go into a negotiation without determining, and this is what we mean by must have or like to have or intend to have. And this is something you think of and you write down. Huh? This is part of your preparation for negotiation. What is it that I must have achieve out of this negotiation? What is it that I like to achieve or intend to achieve, nice to have, and so on. This is a great part of negotiation preparation. A great part of negotiation preparation also, because we defined negotiation as purposeful persuasion and constructive compromise. And what we mean by constructive compromise is that I want to give something to gain something in return. Okay, and this is also part of a great negotiation preparation, is that you never enter into a negotiation without understanding what are the bargaining mix that you want to have, which means what is it that I want to take? What am I willing to give in return? Okay, because the supplier naturally, okay, you want 5% discount, but the supplier maybe would ask for an annual contract with you. Okay, so here we have something to give and something to take. The trick here is you try your best to take the most important factors in the negotiation for your advantage and give the lowest priority. Remember always, suppliers does not know really if these factors are important or not to you. So you may wish to say, okay, for me, most critical is the lead time to deliver a certain service to the camp of the refugees. Okay. So this is something to stress and very important for me. Knowledge transfer also is very important for me. So these 2 points are must achieve, and I need to take them from the supplier. I need to achieve it as well. But the supplier would ask for something necessarily most of the time. So maybe I don't mind giving him exclusivity of supply. For me, this is eventually happening. I don't mind giving an annual contract. The regulation of the country dictates that I should give this to a local supplier, and he's the only local supplier. So for me, this is granted. I can always give him exclusivity of supply, but he doesn't know that. So he will see this very big, that you would give him an annual contract for the camps, all my camps for the refugees. But at the same time, for me, this is not a priority at all, because it's something I don't mind happening. So wow, I'm gonna ask for lead time of the project to be crashed, the shortest lead time, and I will condition the contract with having knowledge transfer to my team at the site. And in return, I don't mind giving him exclusivity of supply. It's not important for me at all. I can give it to him, and so on. This is what we mean by the bargaining mix. The bargaining mix is something to prepare ahead for negotiation by saying, this is what I want to give, and this is what I want to take, or this is what I can take, and it's not so important to me. So the game here is that you take as much as you can of things that's important to you, and give things. That's the constructive compromise. You give things with the lowest important to you, but for the supplier, it would look trivial to the supplier. Very important to the supplier, like exclusivity of supply, if this is applicable in this case. Okay, and this is part of the great negotiation that you want to make ahead of going to the negotiation. Good. In preparing for negotiation, there are great things to look at, and these are just examples of what you can do before going to a negotiation. Okay, you need to ask yourself some questions before going into a negotiation. Do I have a clear objective for the negotiation? Do I know exactly why I am going to negotiate, and what is my interest and my company interest and the finance department interest and everyone interest in the negotiation? This is something very important. Do not go into a negotiation without understanding the clear objective of the negotiation. What are the must achieve and nice achieve? Never go into a negotiation without understanding the thing that you want to achieve. What is my position on each issue? Is he the sole supplier? If he is a sole supplier, I might be facing a monopoly. Okay, are there multiple suppliers in the market? Then I might have a power over the supplier. Do I want to play win-win or win-lose? Am I in the strongest position or in the lowest position? For example, the more you negotiate with a short in time to deliver, you are not in a good position. You want something to happen next week. Okay, you are in a rush, you delayed the negotiation until 1 week before the delivery. Okay, rest assured that the supplier will have the upper hand in this negotiation, because you are in rush and you are willing to give sacrifices and compromises in return of that. Okay, so always ask yourself, what is my position in this negotiation? Do I have upper hand or not? Are there multiple suppliers in the market or not? Is he the only supplier? Am I an attractive customer to him, the suppliers, and so on? Okay. Do I want to make an opening offer? Do I have in mind an opening offer? Sometimes one of the negotiation tactics is to create an opening offer, and so on. What is it that I want to trade? Yeah, the bargaining mix that we talked about. What else? BATNA. What is my BATNA? BATNA stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. Do not go into a negotiation without understanding your BATNA. Do I have a counter offer from someone else? If I walk away from this negotiation, do I have an alternative offer to look at? The more you have BATNAs, Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement, the more you have BATNAs, the stronger you become in a negotiation. For example, let's say that you are negotiating with someone and the price you reached with a supplier is $50 per piece. Okay, this is the best that happened in this negotiation. You managed to reduce the price from $100 to $50 per piece, but alternatively, you have an offer in the market that says you can buy this for $45 less. Okay, so in this case, you are not obliged to buy for $50 because in the market, someone else is offering you for $45. So do you want to walk away from the $50 supplier? If you want to. Why? Because you have an alternative offer. That's $45 per piece. And this is what we call it best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Never go into a negotiation without having a best alternative to a negotiated agreement and so on. So in a nutshell, these are things you ask yourself in a negotiation in order to prepare for this negotiation. Are there other questions? Yes, of course, man. There are plenty of questions that you need to ask yourself, but we are trying to crash in less than 1 hour for all these how to prepare for a negotiation. Now, definitely good negotiators are one that has persuasion techniques, the ability to convince the other party with their point of view for something that might happen. Okay, and in that sense, there are multiple influencing and persuasion techniques. You either use your emotion, and you either use your logic, you either use a threatening technique, or you either use a bargaining, give and take, or you compromise, you give away. Okay, these two ones, basically the bargain and compromise, will make you lose something because you want to give something in return. In the bargain, you give and take, and in the compromise, you just compromise something. Okay, I'm going to give you the advance payment. You compromise something, or I'm going to give you the contract. So basically, B and C, the bargain and compromise, is a persuasion technique. I mean, you can persuade the other party by compromising to them, but this is kind of will cost you something. This will cost you something. While using these techniques, emotions, logics, and threat will not cost you. Okay, when you create them, and you can create wins. Great wins with these emotion, logic, and threats techniques, while you try to drive yourself away from the bargaining and compromises. Actually, they have done a study, and usually in negotiation classes, we show you around how does emotion techniques look like, logic techniques look like, threat techniques look like, and so on. And we do also a questionnaire here where we ask you which one of them is you, which one of them is you, the one that you naturally use. And this is one typical answer from one of the classes. The majority of the class, we had samples from a class, the majority goes to using emotion. As I said, good negotiators, they always use emotion. It doesn't cost them much, and at the same time, it is fulfilling for them. And then logic, they combine. It's not that you only use emotion as a technique. You use mix of techniques coming together, but the preference of every negotiation should be try as much as you can to lower how much you compromise and to lower the bargaining, and you try as much as you can to create wins by emotions, logic, and emotions, logics, and threats. Okay, and maybe one day you get to do this questionnaire to see which techniques are you naturally using as a natural negotiators. Okay, that's it for the slides. So perfectly on time. We have 5 minutes to take questions. So let me start with taking a question. Please drop your questions. Definitely this 1 hour was all about understanding the skills needed in you as a negotiator, and was about preparing for negotiation. And this is what we call negotiation management. Now, going back to the poll that we had, the majority, I would say 75%, dictated that they know how to prepare for negotiation and manage negotiations. Now, ask yourself back if you do have the trading exercises. This one, do you prepare for this ahead of time? Do you know what is your partner must achieve, nice to achieve, and so on? Do you have bargaining mix? Do you ask yourself, what is my position? I'm going to be distributive or integrative. What is my conflict style that I'm going to play, the hats, and so on. Okay, so let's move to your questions. I would love to take more time in the negotiations, but let's do this. Okay, I'll try. I have a lot of questions here to take care of. Please keep them coming. I promise to read them all. Samir there was is asking, do we need excellent psychology to perfect negotiations? I would say, Samir, we need more communication skills. But yeah, understanding the psychology of the other party is something important in the negotiation. Ihan is asking, sometimes you have to, this is not technical, okay. Hani is asking, am I technical? I'm sorry for that, Hani. Muhammad is asking, is this session going to be recorded? Yes, and will be posted at YouTube. Wissam is asking, one of the negotiation is delivery time and how. Wissam, I'm not sure I understand your question. Please rephrase it. Thank you. Abdullah is asking, I always face issue when negotiation terms and condition. The supplier, sometimes they will never accept any change such as Microsoft. Yeah, so, listen, Abdullah, this is very important. Suppliers like Microsoft, Ernst & Young, SAP, and so on, they don't accept. Now, this is part, Abdullah, this is part of the position of negotiation that we should agree on. Before you go to a negotiation, understand your strength against the other party. Sometimes there are positions where there's almost nothing that you can do with the other party except creating or maintaining a contract. Okay. Sometimes when we have a monopoly supplier, sometimes when we have a supplier that's bigger than us, we may wish to play lose-win, which means we lose certain items in negotiation to win a better contract with them, and they would win something more with you, and this is natural. It's not that you always leave negotiation with a win-lose approach, okay? So either win-lose, lose-win, or win-win. Abdurrahman Jarrar is asking, please discuss how do we handle dishonest bargaining situation. That's a big problem in negotiation. One of the attributes of negotiation is honesty and integrity of the negotiator. Okay, and I have to admit that sometimes there is a thin line in negotiation between being ethical and unethical in the negotiation. Okay, for example, if you bluff a supplier where you say, I have other prices, your price is 7, I have 5, and you really don't have 5, this is very dishonest and unethical in negotiation. Okay, so I know for a fact that there are dishonest bargaining that takes place, Abdullah, but one of the skills that you want to raise yourself is to understand, is the other party saying the truth or not? Okay, and this is part of the communication skills they have and so on. Okay. For some reason, some of you are saying they could not answer the polls, but I see more than 90% answering. I'm sorry for this. Hisham is asking, selected skills are based on face-to-face negotiation, while it might slightly differ when negotiating remotely. Absolutely, man, because negotiating over the phone, Hisham, or negotiating on an email requires a little bit different skills of communication, especially over the phone, you know, and especially when you negotiate with different cultures, requires a different set of skills than the regular skills that you need. And today, in the current situation, I see most of you are doing remote negotiation that requires certain skills. I agree. Gamo is asking, does an organization need to have one employee doing the negotiation of all contracts under the supplier management, or this role must be rotated to be carried out by all employees under supplier management? Very good question. It depends on the structure of the organization, Gamo. Some organizations have category management approach. And in category management, you say, these buyers are responsible for this category of buying, construction material, and these buyers are responsible for electric material. If you have this kind of organizational structure, then every buyer would negotiate for the category that they are managing. But in a nutshell, I see other companies that have a flat organization style, where every buyer would negotiate for any PO or procurement process that they are going through. Okay, some procurement managers likes their team to be rotated to gain more skills with negotiating different categories, actually. So it's company specific, actually. Muhammad Zubair is asking, in the first poll, when we try to select, it's not showing. I'm sorry for that, man. Hisham is asking, not to confuse those who selected the collaboration and teamwork. It is indeed important, especially in complex international agreements, yes, where extensive use of facilitators and opinion change is needed. I agree with you, man. Communication skills becomes very important in this case. Abdurrahman Jarrar is asking, is it the best way to address problem directly and offer effective solution, or trying to hide some weakness points which might close the case of negotiation? Listen, good negotiators does not show you their weaknesses immediately. You always show your interest without showing your weaknesses in negotiation in order to win proper negotiation. So sometimes in order to reach an effective solution, you don't want to show the other party what are your weaknesses. Negotiation becomes like a game in this case, okay? Unless we are in a win-win situation and long-term agreement where understanding the interest becomes something important. So back again to, are we integrative or distributive? If you are doing integrative negotiation, this would require us to have an open book discussion with the supplier. If we have a distributive approach where you want to, or you intend to create a win-lose status, in this case, no, you don't want to show your weaknesses to start with, okay? Wearing hats is it's a good comment to understand the difference between the wearing hats in a position. I am a supplier, Abdurrahman is asking, and I am selling product, and one of my clients, we are giving him everything: speed of delivery, low-cost products, flexibility, long credit terms, but they just give us one thing, which is orders, and they are creating lots of issues with us, communication issues, they keep playing back and forth games with us. How shall we gain their trust more with our business and stop facing such issues? The first thing that you want to ask yourself, Abdurrahman, what is your position and what is their position? For example, if you are a supplier to a great company like SABIC, honestly, SABIC is a monopoly, great supplier. They manipulate international markets. It's very hard to dictate your conditions on them. You try your best. All what you hope for is you try your best to maintain proper relation with them. You try your best not to, as a customer, for example, not to disconnect the orders and so on. Sometimes it becomes very challenging for you when the customer is a monopoly customer. But I mean, everything is negotiable again. Okay, it depends how much you need that customer. Tomato is asking, can we have examples of emotions? Yeah, we can have example of emotions. Emotions would be like telling the other party, you know, the situation is getting complex today in the market, and we have to rethink of the way we do business together because the situation is very complex. This is emotion. Okay, emotion doesn't mean that you cry. It doesn't mean that you look pity. No, but emotion where you use your internal strength in an emotional format, like telling the supplier things are not good today in the market and we need to do things in a better way. The situation is not enhancing. We need to rethink of our contract. This is emotional thinking of the contract. Okay. Ali Karazon, could you please provide an example of how could you please provide an example for each influencing method? I think it's Ali. Unfortunately, it will take us a while to answer this, but I will be happy to answer this in written for you, Ali. Jamshid, how to use threatening as a technique. Threatening does not mean that you threaten someone's life, Jamshid. Threatening is like if we don't get this discount for this order, there's a great chance that we don't deal with you in the future. I have multiple offers and I'm reconsidering these offers today. Okay, this is called threatening. Threatening means as long as the quality issues persists in the contract, okay, as long as the quality issues, we will not be able to extend our contract with you. This is called threatening technique. Okay, and this is something to prepare for, to take good quality from the other party. So the other party leaves the negotiation with, wow, if I don't enhance my quality, I will not have a contract extended for next period. Deepak is asking, can we get slides? Of course, this will be updated on the YouTube page. What's your tip on salary negotiation? Mr. Shivak is asking. Salary negotiation requires, honestly, I always negotiated a good salary by having my strength and understanding my strength and how much does the company need me and how much are my skills valuable to them, okay, first, so I can negotiate a proper salary. How much education do I have? Do I have other offers or not? Do I have a BATNA? If I have a BATNA, which means a better offer, a better salary somewhere, a better opportunity out there, I can negotiate a better salary. So back again to the same point, what is your position in the negotiation? Okay. My favorite negotiation technique here, and they ask me how much you want for this position. I would say currently I'm good. Where am I? I will consider your offer if you give me one, and I'll let you know. Okay. I never expose how much do I expect as a salary. Okay. This is one of my personal negotiation techniques. Threatening technique, Victor, I did answer this earlier by not extending a contract, for example, and so on. Babar is asking, how can we practice to become good negotiators? The best way to do this, Babar, is to involve yourself in a negotiation. But my greatest advice is to educate yourself ahead of time about negotiation, reading books, going to classes, so you can flourish your negotiation skills, then you take them into practice. Ibrahim is asking, is negotiation considered as a soft skills? That's a great question. Yes, negotiation is one of the soft skills that entails a lot of technical issues, but yeah, there's a lot of aspects of negotiation that comes from soft skills actually, like communication skills, ability to persuade, active listening. These are all charisma and so on. These are more of soft skills actually. Yeah, I can recommend a great book called Negotiating What Can't Be Negotiated. If you go to SEP's website, there are great articles and the presentation and videos about negotiation that you can watch as well. Could you please share the slides? Gladly. Hani is asking, when I am fully satisfied from the offer and I have all my requirement met, do you think yet I have to negotiate? Only negotiate when you need to negotiate, Hani. Only negotiate. Negotiation is not for free. Negotiation is time consuming. Negotiation takes money sometimes, a lot of resources. It makes me busy from other objectives. So only negotiate what you need to negotiate. Determine what you must have, nice to have, and would like to have. As long as you achieve the must have, you are good to go. If you want to achieve more, something like nice to have, okay. But the most important is to achieve the thing that you must achieve in this negotiation. If you have achieved them, fair enough. Yeah. How to negotiate with, Muhammad's asking how to negotiate with a higher power party. This is always the most complex negotiation. What you need to wish here is to maintain negotiation, and sometimes you, with the higher power party, the best thing that you can do is to maintain a contract with them. It becomes the most challenging negotiations actually. Maher is asking, Maher Al-Utayb is asking, what is the best style with OMEs if their price is high and we have very limited budget? Again, Maher, the best way to answer this question is to ask yourself, back to this slide, what is it that I want to give? What is it that I want to take? You may wish to accept maybe a high price in return of something else, or maybe you want to give them a long-term contract in return of a discount. In negotiation, part of the management is that you do these bargaining mixes. Okay, how can I reduce my the high price because I have a limited budget? So the finance is coming back and say we have a limited budget in this case. So how can I reduce the price according to the target budget or target cost? Basically, I need to give something in return in this case. Okay. So what is the bargaining mix? What is it that I'm willing to give in return for this negotiation to reduce the price? This is something to ask yourself about. Muhammad Zubair is asking, for new competitor in specific market, do we usually try to copy big players' way of offering to customers and taking that on mind when negotiate? My perfect answer to this, Muhammad Zubair, is no, because what you want to do is to have your own strategy in the market, and this is what makes you different from others. You don't have to copy anyone's strategy. You have to create your own strategy, and that will make you negotiate according to your strategy actually. Muhammad is asking also another question from Al-Mu'tasim Billah. What is your advice in continuous contracts which the suppliers negotiate for early payment due to the increase of VAT here in Saudi Arabia from 5% to 15% in these days? As I said, Mu'tasim Billah, it's all about what you want to achieve and what you want to give in return. In that case, you need to ask and go back to my management to see if this is a viable solution or not. The advance payment or early payment, is it yes or no for the finance? Negotiation is about stakeholders management. So one of your stakeholders is the finance. Is the finance interest is yes or no with giving early payment and advance payment? Okay. If yes, then we don't have an issue here. If no, I need to trade something in return for this. Purposeful, constructive compromise. You want to give something in return of something in this case. Figure out what can be given to those suppliers to give away early payment. Or if I want to give you an early payment, what do I want to take in return? You have to give me something in return. Okay. Han is asking, one of the strong negotiation techniques is not to be alone in the meeting, yes or no? It depends on the size of the negotiation, Hani, but negotiating in teams have strength and weaknesses. One of the strengths is that you have multiple people negotiating at the same time. One of the weaknesses, what if we don't agree, me and my colleague, we don't agree on what to negotiate? Or what if we disagree together in negotiation in front of the other party? So yeah, it might be strength and it has pros and cons, but yeah, it's something good to have more than one person negotiating. The purpose of teams negotiating is the specialty. I am good in procurement, but I'm not good technically. So I will have on board the engineering manager with me to negotiate, or the finance manager to negotiate the financial issues. Because everyone has a core that can give it a great negotiation edge. Omar is asking, can I get the presentation? My pleasure, on YouTube. Hisham is asking, for the case of MS or major vendors, once your technical team have selected, then your position is weaker than if you still have the choice among options. Yeah, that because it depends, Hisham, who's doing the selection on what criteria. Okay, but of course, once you have the technical team selected a certain brand, you are directed to buy from that brand. This is one great weakness in negotiation, because it's almost mahtoum, it's almost determined who's the supplier in this case, so your position becomes weaker. Daniel is asking, very informative, thank you, Daniel. Hani is asking, do you think the authority is very important for the strong negotiator? Yes, it is very important. One of the negotiation skills that we teach is the power, Hani. And with the meaning of power, actually I have hidden this slide somewhere. The meaning of power is different. Sometimes you have a power by knowledge, you have a power by experience, you have a power by authority. What does by authority means? That you sit with a supplier and say, listen, give me that 50% discount, and because I have the authority, I will make sure that we have a long-term agreement together. I will extend our contract. I am in a position where I have authority to do this. This is one great way to convince the other party that you have authority. Sometimes not having authority is a great technique as well, where you get stuck in a negotiation, Hani, and the other party is pressuring you, manipulating you, and you are a procurement person, but also salespeople learn how to negotiate. So if you feel pressured in a negotiation, one escape technique is to say, I'm not the decision maker here. I want to come back to you next week with the decision. So you cut the negotiation because you are in a weakest position in this case. Okay. Hassan, what is the appropriate behavior when an issue happens between the negotiators and suppliers? It depends on the, Hussam is asking, depends, Hussam, on the position that you want to put yourself at. In a perfect relationship where we promote supplier relationship management, what we want to have always is a win-win situation where the style of the negotiation should be integrative, which means I need to understand the interest, why the supplier insists on that kind of conditions. Okay, this is called integrative negotiation, and try to find a solution to that problem, preserving the interest of every party. But if the supplier is in a weaker position, where the supplies are ample in the market, there are many sources of supply in the market, you may wish to consider to have the upper hand on the suppliers, and this might make the supplier disagree, but that's fine because you have multiple suppliers in the market. Daniel is asking, will there be a change in negotiation approach due to COVID? Of course, because you know why? Not because of COVID, because negotiation is situational. Depending on the situation that we live, you need to tailor and you need to cope with the situation. So probably because of the situation, one supplier became monopolist supplier, or one customer became a great source of great source as an income, as a customer income, because all the other customers are in China, for example. So that customer becomes very attractive to me. So everything changed because of any situation that might happen. Namir, why is it always hard to win a negotiation with your finance and marketing department? They should take this course for sure. Yeah, listen, but I have to be fair, Namir. Part of negotiation is understanding the actual needs of other departments. We call them stakeholders. And with stakeholders management, you try to understand their interest. If their interest is major in the negotiation, this is something you want to take into consideration. Okay. However, yeah, everyone should understand what is the meaning of a win-win situation, that where we compromise in the middle. And Namir is asking about internal negotiation with other parties within the company itself. Muhammad is asking, what is your advice about using negotiation techniques? Muhammad, there are a lot of techniques in negotiations that you get to learn. Probably you are using them. My favorite is not interested. My favorite is good cup, bad cup, slice the pie. I mean, there are techniques that you can read about in negotiation box or when you come to a negotiation class. This is why I love the diploma, because Michael Gainab, thank you, Samir, most welcome, Michael. Ali Karazon is asking, the employment contract should follow which type of negotiation? Whatever you want, man. It depends again in the strength and weaknesses between parties. Do they need you or you need them? What is the current environment and economical environment? Okay. So, but can you get gains in negotiating an employment contract? Of course you can, because the HR, the finance, they always have options of payment for you, and they have lower scale of payment and higher scale of payment. They have advantages in the packages, so this is something to negotiate, definitely. Okay. As I said, Ali, it depends on the situation. Walid is asking how to use emotions in negotiation. This is a big field, Walid. But as I said, emotion doesn't mean that you want to cry. I can share some emotional techniques with you, but basically it's about showing the other party that things can be great or things are not good at all, and this requires some communication skills, some verbal communication, tone of voice, eye contact, and so on. When is it considered a winning situation to lose a negotiation? Only if you need the other party. And by the way, lose-win, Namir, does not mean that you lose everything. Lose-win means that you give compromises more than the other party. Maybe you want to show you're dealing with a company for the first time, and it's your interest that you add them to your profile as a customer. Major, say, for example, major company, you want to say, these guys are our customers, okay? This is where you want to give a lot of compromise in return of that. So this is where you create a lose-win thinking. You would compromise discount prices, you would compromise certain qualities, but in return, you win them as your customers. Wissam's asking, could you please brief how can we register in official courses to be certified? My greatest advice is to check the diploma in procurement and supply, Wissam, because all what we discussed here is discussed there in 15 hours of negotiation management. Okay. Abdullah Al-Farra is asking, how can we win job opportunities with negotiation? Believe me, Abdullah, there's a lot to do in job offers and job opportunities with negotiations. Depends, as I said, how good negotiator are you? What skills do you have? Do you understand your strength? How do you present yourself? And so on. Daniel is asking, do we need to add sympathy and empathy lines while negotiating through email? Yes, of course. With sympathy and empathy, we mean that you understand the other party and you reflect on that. Of course, Daniel, that's a very good negotiation technique. Maisa is asking, can you repeat the name of the negotiation book? I think it's called Negotiating What Can't Be Negotiated, because I have the Arabic version, Maisa. So the Arabic version, and excuse me guys, I'm going to say this in Arabic. The Arabic version is التفاوض على ما لا يسمح التفاوض عليه, which means negotiating what can be negotiated. Okay, I can pass you that book name, Maisa. It's a bestseller, by the way. Victor is asking, how do we negotiate for salary? Everyone's asking about salary increment. I think in the hard times today, it's very hard. But generally, Victor, ask yourself, do you have a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement? So your current salary is 1,000. Okay. Do you have an alternative in the market that gives you 1,500? If you do, go to your management and tell them, can I have an increase because I have an alternative offer? Okay, you have a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Okay, so if these guys are not willing to increase your salary, you have an alternative in this case. Hiba, hello Samer, very glad I joined this webinar, most welcome. My pleasure. Hisham is asking, more than one person sometimes is used to play black and white characters. Of course, Hisham, we call them good cup, bad cup techniques. And in good cup, bad cup, one plays aggressive, dominant, win-lose style, and then this will stress the other party, and then that's the bad cup, and the good cup will come and say, no, let's try something else. What is better for us to do this and that? So the other party would agree. Yeah, we call this good cup, bad cup techniques. Yasser is asking, what if I used all negotiation methods and couldn't get what I am looking for? For example, let's say if I have a tough manager who would never get convinced, whatever was my strategy or method in negotiating him, what can I do? This is challenging in a work environment because sometimes we have different types of managers, Yasser, and it's natural that we disagree with our management. I think we go back to one of the slides that I should have kept actually that talks about the power, the skill of power, which talks about the experience, the authority that you have. Sometimes if you don't have the authority and the experience as a power, that wouldn't make the other party convince with your suggestions. Actually, I know this is tough, but it depends on what type of manager are we talking about and how much you need the job and so on. Any advices for advanced course in negotiation? Yeah, I think the majority of the courses online are not advanced. They teach you the basics, but I think go to SEPS Education, because SEPS Education has a great line of advanced negotiation techniques and so on. Customers, Yasser is asking, we used to say customer is always right. I disagree with this, Yasser. It's not necessarily that customer is always right. This is different than customer relationship management. Okay. So no, not necessarily customer is always right. How would such a standard rule could be aligned in using the negotiation strategies and methods to convince the customer? First, we have to agree that there's a difference between customer is always right and customer satisfaction criteria. Okay, we want to maintain customer satisfaction criteria and we want to negotiate what is good for the customer and what is good for us, but that does not necessarily mean we oblige to everything that the customer says. Okay, if you read more about the customer relationship management thinking today, you find out that there are different types of customers, one of which is vulnerable customers that you want to give away, actually never deal with. Some customers you want to maintain, some customers you want to win back, and so on. So what I think is that you need to again negotiate the bargaining mix that we talked about, and you need to understand your position in the negotiation. but I disagree that all customers are always right. Muhammad Zubair is asking, there's a good topic related to win-win negotiation in theory of constraints, logical thinking. Thank you very much, that's interesting. Maisa is asking, thank you. Okay, Muhammad's asking, what do you think about negotiation value, or we apply getting to yes techniques? Can you elaborate more, Muhammad? I didn't get the question. Is ZOPA useful? ZOPA stands for Zone of Potential Agreement. And of course, when you go to a negotiation class, Muhammad, you learn how to construct your Zone of Potential Agreements. It's just beyond this course. Yes, it is very, very, very useful before you come to negotiation to understand the Zone of Potential Agreement, where you and the other party understand your limits in negotiation and when everyone needs to leave this negotiation. What is the highest position? What is the lowest position? And where can you play in the middle between them? And this is called ZOPA, Zone of Potential Agreement between parties. Okay, that's it. I have taken much of your time. I want to thank you very much. Thank you, Maisa. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I will be uploading the contents at the YouTube page of Muhakat. Many of you ask about the professional education. My advice is always to look into, definitely when you intend to attend CLTD and CSCP, unfortunately you don't learn much of negotiation skills and techniques because they are more of a logistics and supply chain, but sincerely, SEPS education teaches you a lot of techniques about contracting management and negotiations and so on. So for example, the diploma, let me scroll back and share this with you if you have time. If I go to the slide that talks about, see, if you enroll in education like this, you find there's a whole book about communication, commercial contracting. If you do go to advanced diploma, you also find that you have advanced contract and financial management for negotiation. And you also have teams, individuals, and so on. I mean, wherever you go in the education of SEPS levels, you certainly find negotiation books and learning of techniques of negotiation. Even here, if you go to lower level, you find more books about procurement and sourcing. They talk about negotiation and so on. Okay, thank you very much. Muhammad Saad, thank you. Muhammad Farah, thank you. Ali Karazon, thank you guys. Sharaftuna. Everyone, thank you for your time. I'm not sure about if we are going to kick more webinars. I think in Ramadan we did 5. I think 5 webinars. I'm not sure if this is going to continue on a weekly basis because we did this because we had some good time, free time actually at night to do these webinars. I hope I will be continuing this, but we don't know how this is gonna happen after Ramadan. Hisham, of course, these are my contacts and my, let me go back to the contacts page. Feel free to reach out by email or by phone, whatever you want. This is my phone number personally for business relations and so on. Thank you very much. All of those who attended today will receive, humbly will receive a certificate from Muhakat for attending it. Keep learning, guys, and make the best of your time. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I will be looking forward, inshallah, sometime after Ramadan, probably preparing more classes like this. Very interesting, actually. The amount of attendance is overwhelming. Thank you, Maher. Thank you, Walid. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Omar, everyone. And inshallah, see you soon. Bye-bye.